Thanks everyone for joining us today. My name's Caroline Fernandez, and I'm here very excited to be here today with Susan Michel, who happens to be my mother as well. And we're going to be doing a podcast. So I'm going to ask her some questions, and we're just going to kind of go from there and hope that you guys enjoy getting some feedback about her story around how she started Glen Eagle and grew it.
Well, it's sort of funny because when I asked Carol what the questions were going to be, she said it was a surprise. So I'm kind of a little nervous about that, but bring it on. Go ahead.
All right, so we'll just jump in here. Why don't we start with just talking a little bit about you were young in Germany with Dad, became a school teacher, and then started having some children. And how did you transition from becoming a school teacher, which is very different, to the financial industry that you're now in?
Well, I guess I was young is a very operative word. My husband had graduated from West Point, and I had gone to an all-women's college. And about a year after college, we were married, and we were stationed during the Cold War overseas. And so we were in northern Germany, near Berlin, which was the Iron Curtain. And I actually was teaching for the Department of Defense, and he was serving, and so he wasn't home a lot. And we decided after a certain amount of time to start a family. And after a few years, we were going to be coming back to the States. And he decided that he always loved finance. And so he would often laugh and say 5 years or dinner, whichever came first. And 5 years was coming. And so he loved finance. I wasn't a finance person. But what we did is I started to help him. And I decided in order to have a better relationship and have better conversations while he was away at the field all the time, I wish I could say I craved finance, but I think I wanted to get out of the house. I had 2 little boys at that point. We were stationed at that point in Colorado, and he was gone for long periods of time in training exercises with his, he was a commander at the time. And so I signed up for like 3 nights a week, 6-week type of course, I think something like that. And I went and they talked about finance and all the different things that you could learn. And I loved it. And at the end of the 6 weeks, my husband had returned, and I basically, he was home on a Saturday morning, and the advisor called me. And I said, oh, thank you so much. And my husband was home for one of those sessions, and he came one time and he said, that's great. He said, but I really think you should put your husband on the phone. And I said, well, why? He only came once. And he said, well, this might be a little technical and you might need his help. And I thought, oh my gosh, here was a person who graduated from an all-women's college where we were told we could do anything. And I think I was, at the time, a lot sweeter than I am now. So I wasn't rude. I just said, no, I think this conversation's over. I really believe. But what I did is I hung up the phone. It was probably the largest gift. I really wasn't upset as much as I was puzzled. And I think when you go to an all-women's college, they basically told you could do anything. So my husband came in from outside, and I told him what had happened. And he said, Sue, why don't you just go and start taking some of the licenses and learning about the world of finance? And I did. And it turned out that he was then left the military, and he was in graduate school at Carnegie Mellon, and he had to do an internship, and he had started this business, his finance business, on his own, and he needed someone who would take it over. And I did. And just between you and I think I did a better job than he was doing, and I was gaining clients, and I'm not sure why, but I actually think when I reflect back on it, I think teaching and finance go hand in hand. And I think I was handling it more as a teaching experience, that I wanted my clients to understand everything we were doing. And I think also as the woman part of me, I needed more confidence back then than I had. And so I double checked everything, and I was meticulous. So I probably spent more time than I needed to as an advisor on every account, but I was learning with my clients. And some of them are still my clients, and I laugh and say, what were you thinking when you brought your money to me? But I think it was trust, transparency, and I had a desire. And so that was sort of not a novelty, but that's how I got in the business. I wish I could say I grew up with finance and I was a guru, but not,
and I know you
so
pride yourself on being a woman-owned firm now, and that's one of the reasons because of how you got into it. But kind of going from there, so I'm the third of four, I have three brothers. So you were raising four of us when you started. At first you were as an employee working as an advisor and then started your own firm. But maybe you could share a little bit about, I know you talked to us about Tupperware parties and ways of just trying to, you were always focused on being a mom. We didn't really even know you worked, to be honest. How did you handle having all of us at home and trying to build your business at the same time?
Actually, what I did is we had really good babysitters. And I actually had a very close friend who lived across the street who was a computer science major. And so she was into computers. And we actually made a deal with each other that if one of us we had to pick up at 5 o'clock. But if one of us had to work late, we always made that call. And cell phones were just coming out, and we would call and say, I need your help. You pick up at the bus stop today, and you guys just thought you played together, and your moms got together and had tea at 5 or 6 o'clock at night. But a lot of times it was at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, and also coordinating calendars with my husband on the weekend saying, okay, you have to pick them up here and there. I actually, when I look back on it, I think finding good help is, you need to be helped. You can't do it alone. But also, I think we talked about finance at the table. We actually, I think, decided we would bring you into our businesses. We were a little anomaly, and my husband was working at Merrill, but then left and started his own businesses. And so there were two individuals who were running two different companies. But we talked about those at the table, and we actually shared things. I sometimes, they always say you should have a board when you own a company. And I sometimes think my kids would probably tell you they were the board, because I would come home exasperated with an employee or decide, should I go to a bigger place? And they were the ones who would say, Mom, do it. Mom, fire that person. So I laugh, and I think when they were 9 or 10, they were already thinking they were a part of running the firm. But they came and did their homework in the firm, in the conference rooms, and they were a part of the business. I think that when you have this opinion that you can separate your business from your family, I think you have to blend it. I think
it's probably very fitting that you may be hearing my 8-month-old screaming in the background as we tried to do this during nap time. And I think my role model of you blending the business and home is very evident.
It's funny because I did have a home office one time, and my mother-in-law was visiting, and the phone rang, and she was just having a conversation, and I ran down, answered the phone, and the kid said, shh, Grandma, quiet, that's our Disney money. So that's the other thing you want to do. You want to kind of align it with, I'm working hard, but you're working hard. And they would do their homework and I would work. And I think that's how we did it. We sort of, we're not being mean to that 8-month-old. She has to cry. It's time for nap. She needs to settle down. So yeah.
She's just saying hi to everyone. But on that note, so we all grew up, obviously. I would say,
for better or for worse.
I would say you did a good job. And now two of us, myself and my youngest brother, have decided to enter the firm, and two of my brothers are not into it. Maybe talk a little bit about succession planning and how I know you had some strict rules on if we wanted to come back to the business. None of us actually even knew we were going to come back until later. Maybe talk a little bit about how you figured out how to do that?
I think in retrospect, when you share these kind of things, they always look better than they actually were. I never even imagined that the kids would come into the business. In fact, the mother part of me, the first instinct was, I put all this education into you. Why would you want to come back to this business? But the way it worked is when Rob, who's in the business, graduated from Yale, he became an investment banker at Morgan Stanley. And then after a few years, went back to Wharton for his MBA. And to me, I thought he was going to go on to bigger things. And he said to me, if I work as hard as an investment banker in your firm, Mom, I think I can really take it to a next level. The gift you give me is a strong foundation. The gift I'll bring to the firm is I'm not coming some kid you have to teach. I think I have a lot of ideas of the future of the business, the future of the industry. And it was sort of appealing to me. And at the time I looked at my husband and he said, I think you should jump in the water. At the same time, Carol had graduated from Notre Dame and gone to Merrill, and she was doing like the mathematical modeling for their advisors, and she loved math and finance. And then after a few years, she went back to Notre Dame for her MBA, then went to M&T Bank and was at their global strategy part. And after that, she said, Mom, I don't want to come back in the firm. And we had one of the division heads was leaving. And she said, I want that position. I'd like to interview for it. And we did. We interviewed. And I'm proud to say she was probably the most qualified. But her thing was, as a woman, and I think you'll all appreciate that, she said, I don't want to wait till I'm in my mid-30s and I have a couple of kids, because I feel the firm might view me as just coming as a second, and I really want to come because I want to build something with Rob. And so they did, and they came in. We actually have two older children. So what do you do when two are coming in the business and two are not? Our second son is a Fortiac lawyer, and our other son was in finance, actually, in my husband's firm. And what we did is we formed a family board. And we meet every year. We usually go somewhere away. So we're in a neutral place, fun. We bring the spouses and the children. But we spend about 2 days and we talk about what does the future look like? What is transition? What does Glen Eagle look like with two people in it and two not? And then we start to branch out and to buy other businesses and do things like that, so that it really is become an enterprise. We didn't realize what we were doing at the time. We just thought, well, we should probably start this. And it kind of accelerated a little bit in July. Very suddenly, my very healthy, no medicine, absolutely perfect guy who would go out running with me and was running a full-time business, hadn't even thought about retirement, passed away suddenly. And I think that as a family, because we had been so transparent and the businesses had been such a part of their life, actually we are working through it, and a lot of the things are in order. People don't realize, they think they're going to, when I always meet with a client and they say, a business person, I'm going to die at my desk, I think how selfish, because you die at your desk without planning, succession planning, and the people behind are left with such a mess. And so we believe it was a gift, a real gift.
And I think that's one of the big things you always emphasized was, you were saying, I don't want to work in the business, I want to work out of the business, or on the business, sorry. And so one of the things you kind of instituted, I remember pretty early when Rob and I came in, is one, everyone keeping processes, but two, you would actually take days where you wouldn't contact the office at all and make people kind of figure it out. And I think that's something that, as an owner, it was interesting to watch. And I think as a person just working in the office, made us all really concentrate on what is succession planning looking like, and everyone knows each other's role. And then so when, my dad didn't work in the business, but things that you had taught us, if it happened to you tomorrow, I feel like we do feel confident we could do things.
And in fact, he had a fairly large business, and I had to assume immediately, as the second largest shareholder in the business, a board position and a seat. And that took a lot of time. It's an emotional time, but if I didn't have the confidence in the next generation to help with the firm, my firm, I think it could have been a disaster. So I think that if I always believed it, but now I think I'm talking from the heart, that I think that's, if I give back anything going forward, it's going to be helping other women with businesses say, but what if you're not here tomorrow? What does that look like? And how have you, we put so much into our businesses, financially, emotionally, time-wise. What does it look like if you're not here tomorrow? Are you leaving a legacy? And I think that that's the key. What is your legacy? I think I would challenge more business owners to look at that, especially women business owners, because I think we care about that. I often laugh and say, my husband would tease me and say, how much do you have to have put away before you're worrying about being a bag lady? I'm not sure as women we ever stop that, but I do feel like we have the next generation coming in. Yeah. How am I doing?
You're doing good. So finishing up here, I guess, what are some key takeaways you would give to women who are either, trying to start their business while raising families, or, maybe on the part that you're at now, which is looking more at the succession plan? What are some key takeaways or advice you'd give to women?
Think and make decisions from your heart, not from your head. There's so many WebExes like this out there where people tell you the right way to do it. I think that you have to look at who you are, who your family is, personalities of your children, personalities of your spouse, or if you're a single mom, what is your particular situation, and what is the best thing for you going forward from your heart. If every decision I made from the heart, it was the right decision. Sometimes when I made it because that's the way it was supposed to be, or that's what I was told, it wasn't me, so it didn't execute correctly. I remember when we were starting the firm, our firm value and mission statement is faith, family, and firm, in that order, and firm being last on purpose. And faith is not a religion. faith is just, as a woman-owned firm, I believed that there was always something greater than myself, whether it was a higher being, whether it was exercise, whatever that is, there's something greater than ourselves. And I thought if I didn't live that, then I wasn't going to be true to my clients and my firm and my employees. The second was family, because I loved my firm, but I am so glad now, looking back, that I put everything I could into my marriage and to my children. And they were a part of the firm, and I talked about it, and I grew as a person, because I believe if family is friends surrounding you, or family members, or older parents you're trying to take care of, children you're trying to get through college, or grandchildren, that there's nothing, when you leave this earth, there's nothing more important than that, the family. And I think if you don't have those two things healthy, your firms, no matter what the industry, no matter what you're doing, is not going to be successful, because from here, you're not thinking healthy, so your firm. And firm was last on purpose, because we did believe if we had those two healthy and in order, the firm would be successful. And I have to be honest, I started my business from my kitchen table. And now, you know, we have a huge entity. We're both trading and advisory. So we trade for state pension plans for people all over the world. We do marketing, whatever we do. It doesn't matter what you're doing. I walk through the halls and I still think, how did this happen? And the good thing about that is it happened without pushing something in that didn't belong. It just happened naturally. And I think it's happening because I've known that I have to step back, and I have to let next generation kind of take over. And I have to take, really, when they roll their eyes at me, like, Mom, really? I have to smile and nod. But I think together, I bring to them a great foundation and firm, and sort of what I call, they all have advanced degrees. I don't have an MBA. I was raising 4 children, building a firm. And I always think if there's one thing you want, I always think I'd love to have that. But what I do have is, I think I have a degree of School of Hard Knocks. And I think that most people that are seasoned in business have a degree in School of Hard Knocks, and that's the most valuable degree I think anybody can get. And what I do have now is a gift of children who did achieve probably a higher level education than I was able to do, because I was busy building it. And so I sort of enjoy their intellectual kind of forethought of where we can go and what we could do. So it's a great combination.
See, I told you I have no problem with the questions on the fly. Thank you everyone for joining us, and hopefully you've enjoyed this podcast. And you know, if you'd like to talk to Susan / my mom after this, we can definitely provide the contact information.
But it's all School of Hard Knocks. It's not, I don't think it's any, but thank you.